Well, here we are again. My name is Larry Johnson, and I am the founder of the Reclaim America project. Welcome to our fifth and final video in this series. The series was created to help you, the voter, understand what the Reclaim America project is all about and what it is that we're trying to accomplish. The first video gave you an overview of the project, as well as some background about how it came to be and what the impetus was for making it or for coming up with the program. Then we talked about the first step in the program, which is organizing voters who think like we do and who share or agree with the goals and objectives of the Reclaim America project. Then we talked about our first big task, and that is removing and replacing the career politicians. The next thing we talked about in video number 4 was restructuring and reorganizing all the bureaucracies and getting rid of all the unnecessary bureaucrats who make our lives so miserable. And today we are going to be talking about what is probably the most serious and the most critical part of the project. Now, again, the first important step was organizing. If we are not able to organize, if we're not able to unite like all the other political entities so that our voice can be heard as the largest political constituency in the United States, nothing else can happen. But if we're able to organize, able to replace all the politicians, and able to restructure government, get rid of all the bureaucracies and the bureaucrats, and we don't do this last step, then it's just a matter of time before we're right back where we were. And today we're talking about monitoring government, monitoring politicians, so that the same thing that we're dealing with today doesn't happen again in the next 5 years or so. If we do this right, we can buy maybe another generation or two. In other words, our children and their kids, our grandkids, may be able to have a decent life. I mean, eventually, this is going to happen. I mean, if nothing else, God said it is. But He didn't say it had to happen in our lifetime. And I look back and I think about what the founding fathers and all those who came before us, the sacrifices they made and the price they paid so that my life could be as good as it has been, the problems notwithstanding. I feel like I owe something to my kids and their kids to pass it on. So that's what this is all about for me. But I took the time and tried to think of everything that is and was wrong with today's system and come up with something in this project, in this strategy, to address and to counter that situation or that problem or that weakness, that default, for as long as we could and as best we can. And what happens is, and this is historical, once people are comfortable, once they have peace, once they have comfort, as I said, in their lives, they become complacent. We don't want to think about it. We just go on doing our thing. Well, space abhors a vacuum. And if people are not being watched, the folks who mean evil, the corruptors, the special interests, the people who are looking for power and influence, they're going to fill that void. We leave the politicians alone, they're not. So what we have to do, once we have accomplished the first 3 phases, is set up a system that will monitor the politicians. And it isn't so much that we have to watch the politicians. Some of them, yeah, you'll need to watch because, I mean, they're just bad people. But I know I was taught as an executive that most crime is crime of opportunity. In other words, people do stuff because it's almost like, how can I not do it? because they're not held accountable. So for the most part, we won't have to worry about the politicians. But what we need to do is to insulate our new politicians from corruption. In other words, if they're being watched, if everything they do is being watched, everything that they try to, any legislation they try to produce, any policies they try to create, any laws they try to come up with, anything like that, if we're watching it and examining everything, it's going to be very difficult for big money, for special interests, for even for self, for their, in other words, for their own self enrichment. It's going to be hard to get away with anything like that or to be vulnerable if someone is being watched. So the goal is to have two people, two citizens, two non-politicians, non-professionals watching every politician throughout the nation at every level. Any legislation they write, we want to know what it is, what it's about. No hidden clauses, no pork, none of that stuff. It's everything is out front and in the open. They do something or try to get something past us that is a no-no. We sound the alarm. We get on the network. Again, this is why it's important that we know who you are and be able to get in touch with each other so that we can pull our forces wherever we need them, whenever we need them, and bring pressure to bear. The reason we want two people is so that we have two eyes, two sets of eyes on the politician, but also the monitors can monitor each other. Once again, the idea is insulating them as best we can from them being vulnerable to corruption, to bribery, to influence. Then we want to make the duration of their terms as short as possible because the longer they're there, the more likely they are to develop relationships and get to know people, and again, making them vulnerable. So I'm recommending that about every 6 months we rotate or change monitors, mix them up, keep things moving so that you don't get a chance for the evil people, for the corrupt people, for the people with bad intentions to get a foothold. So every politician will have two people at the minimum watching everything they do, and the monitors will be watching each other. And this is probably one of the areas where we'll need to set up some type of an organized structure so that we can have supervision, we can have networks, we can have information sharing. I'm thinking the best people for this, I mean, it can be anybody. And again, you will have to figure this out at your local level. It's the concept that I'm promoting, the idea that we need to hold the politicians accountable. We can't just put them in office, forget about them, and expect things to just continue going. You only get what you inspect. And if we don't watch these people and hold them accountable, I guarantee you it's just a matter of time before the money, self-interest, and the corruption is going to ruin them and take us right back where we were. So we can't get lazy. We can't go back to business as usual. We have to stay on it. But I'm thinking students would be a natural resource. There are only 80 some thousand politicians who are not in DC based on the last study that I was able to dig up in 2013. And then there are 535 between Congress and the House of Representatives in DC. So we're not talking about a lot of people to pull together, but students, retirees, ex-military, in other words, anyone who has the desire, has the time, we can make this voluntary, we can pay people for this, but we have to have oversight. We have to have uh, vigilant monitoring, if you will, to help make this last as long as we can. Again, as I said, eventually, because of human nature, they're going to figure out a way to get around this system as well. But at the very minimum, it will create a setback. And if we're in there rewriting all the laws, restructuring everything, It's going to be hard for them to get a foothold again. It's going to take them some time. And that way we can buy maybe a generation or two. Then it's up to them what they do. We will have done our part to give them a legacy, and now they can take it from there. So there you have it, people. That in its entirety is the Reclaim America program, the steps involved and what it is we're trying to accomplish and how we're trying to accomplish. I pray that this makes sense to you and that you understand how simple and easy this is if we will just move on it. I have a couple more videos coming in a different category to address reasons that people say they don't want to get involved, or the excuses they make, or some of the things that we've heard people talk about. But anyway, that's stay tuned, and if you're not subscribed to the site, do so that you can receive any new videos as they're posted. Thank you for checking us out, and again, looking forward to working with you.